Hi everybody, welcome back to Missy's Imaginings. I wanted to look at a project that we did a while back. It was for the third scale BJD male ninja or harem pants, and the pattern is on the website. I was really tickled. I saw a couple people in the Facebook groups that I'm in were talking about it, and one actually sewed the pants, so it looks great. So if you're watching, they looked great. And this is the pattern that's already available. It does need to be put together and assembled before you cut your fabric. So there's a line here. The pieces will be separated, and then you just cut them out, tape them together before you use them. So I was looking because there was another picture of some pants that are harem pants or ninja pants that had more pleating. They didn't go down as far in the crotch line, and they had a waistband that's done much like a cuff on like a sweatshirt, a similar fashion. And I thought that is a really good idea. So what I've done is I've taken and modified this pattern, and I'm going to try making these today just to see if we like the fit better. So I raised the crotch a little bit so it's not quite as low. Let's compare them so you can see the difference. So here we go. So instead of coming down this far, they come up higher. Also, because of the bulk involved, and we're going to be putting this waistband on that is more of a pull-up style pant, I took out the fly because that adds more bulk when you have those layers for the fly opening. So I took that out. We're going to add 2 pleats on each side of the front. Then I also shortened the waist because this is now going to have a waistband attached. So it's not going to need to be folded over anymore. So I cut some of that off. One of the legs I saw was a little bit short, so I lengthened that. So now the pieces will look like this kind of a shape. So we'll put these together, and if we like them, I'll go ahead and get this pattern ready and put it on the website as well. The waist part is going to be put together a little differently. So I wasn't sure. I'm going to cut 2 waistbands. I'm not sure how long it will actually need to be because of the way we put it together. So when you have a knit fabric, it's going to be sewn in a tube, so you can see the seam allowance here, and it's going to be cut smaller than the actual waist. This is just something to show kind of what we do. And then once you fold it, once you sew it, you fold it with the seam allowances together, and that creates what will be your waistband. So it looks like this. Then what you're going to do is I always pin the front, the back, center, and each side, and then as you sew it to the garment, you're going to pull and stretch that taut so that it matches the length as you go through your machine, and then that's what gives you the stretch fit where it's attached. But then this edge, the top edge of the garment, will be smaller to go around the waist of the doll. So that's kind of how these are put together and how these are put together. Some cuffs are ready made so that they're one piece, and then some are folded. You can see on my sweatshirt, see, that's also a folded cuff. So there's different kinds of cuff that you can buy, but we're going to do this method, or the folded method. So once I get the waistband put together, I'm going to do the smaller one first so that I can see if it is indeed big enough when we stretch it to fit, because I want it to be able to stay up, obviously, when you pull up the pants. But that's how it kind of works. So we'll go ahead and put these together and see if we like them, and have a brand new pattern that's ready. So if you want to come along, we'll go ahead and start sewing. Okay, so I've chosen some white knit, And I'm first going to put the darts in the back pieces, and I'm going to set in the pleats in the front, and I'm going to insert the pockets. Now I've done all this on other videos, so I'll just kind of allude to what the steps are just for the sake of time. So first I'm going to do all that prep sewing and get that part done, and then we'll go on to the next step. The fronts are now done with pleats in the front, and the pockets are done. So there's the pockets. Now I'm going to sew the fronts together at the inseam like this, and I will go ahead and sew the backs together at the inseam as well, right sides together. Like this. Now, with the front and back finished, I'm going to sew the front and back together, right sides together, down the side seams of the legs. Now that the front and back is put together, before I put the inseam together, I'm going to hem the legs. Now I will pin the inseam and sew it closed. The pants are now put together, and as you can tell, this is really wide, so it's going to be a lot bigger than what a normal doll waistband is going to be. So that's where the new method of a waistband comes in that's really cool. Now I'm going to just do a double check on this gal, because their hips really aren't that different. So I think the shorter waistband would be too snug, so I am going to use the longer piece. So on the longer piece, I'm going to sew right sides together, like so, for half the length there. And I'm going to put in a 1/4 inch seam. And the cool thing about this kind of a waistband, or a cuff for that matter, is that you can put it on and you don't have to pre-gather your fabric that's larger than the waistband, because the knit of the waistband gives enough stretch to nullify that need. So that's the cool thing about doing this method. So here, we'll trim our threads. There we go. Alright, so now we have our waistband. It's just a loop of fabric, and I'm going to open the seam and I'm going to fold it over so that the seam is inside the fold, kind of like I showed at the beginning. There we go. And line up your edges so they're flush. And if you've done this before, then you know how cool it is. And if not, here's a fun new thing that will have you saying woohoo. So I don't know if you'll really say woohoo, but there we go. So now I'm going to pin the center back to the seam on my waistband with the raw edges together. So I'm going to pin right here, like so. And then I'm going to pull to find the other, not real tight, but just enough to where I can find what would be the opposite side of the seam, because that's going to be my center front. And I'll put a pin here just to give me time to line it up. So again, I'm on the outside or the right side of the fabric here. So it's going on the right side, and yes, the inside fabric is too big, but that's okay. So now I'm going to pin my center front to where the pin is on the waistband, bringing those raw edges even. There we go, like so. Okay, now I'm going to take my little waistband and I'm going to match where the pins are, so that I can see if they look the same on both sides where my sides will be. So here's one side. So I'll put a pin here. And a pin on this one. And it looks like it's not quite even now. Well, yeah, I'm gonna move that over a little. It didn't quite look like I had my center in the even spot, so there we go. Just gonna adjust it a tiny bit. There we go. Now I'll pull this snug, so match those. Yeah, that's better. And then I'm going to pin over on this side. So these are going to be matched. These pins will be matched to my side seams. So here's one. And I am opening the seams just to help it lay a little bit more flat. Now you'll notice that I did not serge any of this simply because it's a knit fabric and it's not going to fray and ravel, so I'm not worried about serging those seams because it's going to be fine. And remember, anytime you serge, though sometimes it's necessary, it does add more, you know, more bulk to what you're doing. So now you can see that it's puckery inside here, but when I sew it, I'm going to pull that waistband tight as I sew. So I'm going to start at the back of the center back, so I'm going to start, and I'm going to back tack and anchor my thread. Then I'm going to pull that waistband tight, and it'll be one of those things, you like how I repeat myself, where it does take some dexterity of your fingers, because you've got to pull that tight so that the length of the waistband matches the length of the fabric of your pants. And then once it's sewn, see, then it'll snap back together. So that's what we're going to start. We're going to do that with each of those 4 sections. And there are the pants. I think the only adjustment I want to make is that I do want to make my waistband a little wider, because this ended up being a little narrow. So now we'll go ahead and put these on the doll and see how it looks. And here are the pants. So they do fit. This is a 68cm Miro doll Rain, and he's a little more full through the torso than the resin sole long that I have, and he's not quite as tall. So if you have one of the fellas that's a little bit huskier, you can see that there's plenty of room in these pants for some of the bigger guys. And also the length, there's lots more length for a doll up to like 70 centimeters. And if you have one of the real big guys, it's more like 80, you can easily adjust the length by adding more on the length, and you can add a little bit more width on the side if you really need to. When I was sewing, I got this together, and I realized I did have enough fabric for one more pleat towards the center, which I went ahead and put in because I forgot the width of my pocket when I was figuring out the width for the pleats. And so I realized, oh, I'm going to have a lot more fabric than I thought. So I went ahead and added that extra pleat. So I will go ahead and make that adjustment on the pattern for you. But you can see they fit him really well. And here's the back. So what this waistband style does, it allows you to fit that fabric without having to pre-gather or baste or adjust your gathers. You just pull that snug and sew around. So it's a lot easier to apply this kind of a waistband. And it has, I don't know, it looks pretty natural. Mine's a little bit crooked because I was trying to hurry and get this done so you could see it, so I can get this edited and posted today. But I like the way they fall. I do like the crotch up a little bit higher than the other pattern, but it's still a dropped crotch in there. But I think it has a good look. They are real pockets. So there you go. You can see the real pockets. And they fit this guy that's a little huskier. The other thing I was going to mention is, like, sometimes it's hard for him to keep his head up. So I mentioned it in a couple Facebook groups, and I will go ahead and add it here as well. But I have a piece of clear vinyl that I've just folded in half and cut in roughly like a little odd semicircle or rectangle shape with rounded corners. And then I cut the center out, and I fold that in half, and I'm just going to, and the reason I cut a little circle in the center is to go around the strings. So all you have to do then is, if you're having a hard time getting those heads to stay where you want them, is to just slide this kind of up underneath so it's up on the neck and under his chin and kind of hidden by his chin, and then you've got instant friction so that his head will stay up. So it just helps to form a bond there that's got enough friction to let your posing work better, but you're not permanently changing the doll. If you're nervous about hot glue sueding and you don't want to get a hot glue gun next to your resin, there you go. It's just another alternative to hot glue sueding. And I know a lot of people will put it on like another surface and use a little cardboard stick, you know, to swab it in there, but sometimes it's just messy and I don't particularly like it. So I like the little clear vinyl. It just makes an easy way for them to pose better, and it's easy and it's not permanent. You can take it in and out as you want. So anyway, there are the white pants. So I like the way they turned out. I think they turned out pretty good, and so you can enjoy that. I will go ahead and get that new pattern ready for posting on the website so it looks nice and pretty. You know, you got to put on the white paper and the black lines and get it all nice so that it's not just, you know, brown paper. So I will get that ready, and you can enjoy a new design for your ninja pants. Happy sewing, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.